You got it.
Okay, so now we're being recorded. My name is Joyce Raimondo, and I am the Education Coordinator at the Pollock Krasner House and Study Center. And this program is hosted jointly with the North Shore Public Library in Shoreham-Wading River. And thank you to Lorena Daughtery for co-hosting the program today, and also for all of Lorena's support of the arts and the amazing program she brings to us. So I'm also an artist. I'm here in my home, and we're doing a series of basic drawing sessions. So today's session is called What's My Line? Pencil Drawing. And we are going to explore different ways to use pencil, okay? And I hope you find it enjoyable. Before we begin, let's go over some aspects of pencil supplies. If you don't have the supplies, don't worry, but I want you to have a basic idea of what we're talking about when we say pencil. So these are graphite pencils, okay? And as you know, I am sure, pencils have little numbers right here, right? And what do these little numbers mean? So your typical average pencil is 2B, okay? As the numbers increase on B, the pencil gets softer and it's easier to make a darker line. So here's 2B. And let me see. Here's 6B. 6B is going to give me a much darker line, okay? So if you want to do also a broader area, it's softer, so it's easier to sometimes draw with a softer pencil. Now, there are also H pencils. This is 2H. The larger the H numbers, that means that the graphite is harder, and you will get, let me just find one here. Here is 4H. So this one is more compressed, and you're going to get a finer line, a softer line, a lot, not softer, lighter, a more delicate line with the H pencils. You can buy these in a set, which is what I did, okay? Now, other supplies, an eraser. When we're in school, we use this kind of eraser when we were children, a rubber eraser. But we all know when you erase with this eraser, you get little shavings come off. We all know that because remember when you were a kid and you'd erase and then you go, we don't want that. We don't want little shavings. So what you use is a kneaded eraser. It's spelled K-N-E-A-D, kneaded eraser. I do have these. Unfortunately, I'm not gonna lie, they're a little, they're dried up, but just to show you, they come in, it comes in a rectangular, small rectangular block, but then it's like, you know, silly putty, remember that? Like you can change this shape, you can pull it, you see? And then as you work it, the inside is gonna be clean. Let's say I erased with this one, but then if you pull it out, the inside is all clean and fresh. I'm sorry, this one dried up. I have to get a new kneaded eraser. But the idea with the kneaded eraser is, number one, it doesn't have shavings. And number two, you can shape it into any shape that you want. So let's say you want to get in there and just do a tiny little of erasing in the corner of an eye or something. You can do that. You can change the shape and the size, okay? So also when you draw, we usually think of erasing, beginners at least, that you are erasing when you made a mistake. But that's not true. You also use an eraser in drawing to create highlights, and you can actually draw with an eraser. Let's say you smear the graphite all over the page, and then you pick up, you remove the graphite, you're drawing with the eraser as well. Okay? Okay, so next we have, of course, you want a sharpener, that goes without saying, and a stump. These come in different sizes, and the purpose of the stump is blending, right? So you want to blend with this stump, and again, you can get right in there, and then when graphite is on the stump, you can also use this as a drawing tool in and of itself. Now, why use a stump instead of just your finger? Don't smear it with your finger. Your finger has oil on it. we don't want oily substances on our drawing, right? Well, so you don't want to get your hands really messy because then that might get smudged onto other areas in the picture. If you don't have a stump, you can get a tissue and wrap it around your finger and you can blend with that. Okay, any questions so far? Now, this is really important. The paper you use is going, or the surface, but let's say paper for the sake of pencil drawing. It's going to make a big difference in the way the pencil is seen and also how it reacts to the paper. So there's basically cold press and hot press, right? And I always forget which is which. So somebody tell me if you remember which is which. But one is smooth and the other one is textured. It's rough, okay? And if you get a grainy rough paper, they come in different degrees of roughness, okay? Some of them can be a fine texture, and some of them are very, very rough. Rough papers can be good textured papers if you're really putting a lot of graphite on there and you want it to hold the graphite. But I like to work with smooth myself. Also, of course, the weight of the paper, right? If you're doing lots of quick sketches, use cheap, inexpensive paper. You won't be afraid to make a mistake. But if you're doing something more serious, or rather more permanent, you're going to want to think about the quality of the paper. Is the weight of it strong enough to hold the pencil? Okay. Cold press is rough. Thank you, North Shore Public Library. Okay. So I'm using newsprint paper today. It's not ideal for pencil. It's better for charcoal, really, but it's good because it's so inexpensive. It's like you can then just throw them away. Okay. So any questions about materials? Sometimes also we use fixative. We sometimes spray our drawing so it doesn't smudge, okay? And you always want to test out a little bit like, well, maybe not if you do it a lot in your experience, but don't ruin your drawing. Like test it out maybe either on the corner or do a separate drawing with the same material, just roughly, to make sure that the fixative is not going to ruin your drawing in any way, okay? Sometimes you don't have to fix a graphite pencil drawing because it's not that smudgy, but if you're working with pastel or charcoal, in most cases, you're going to want to fix the drawing, okay? And you can buy that in an art supply store. Jean?
Yeah. Does it matter how many pounds, the weight of the paper? You know, some say 140 pounds, or is that just watercolor paper? I have the pad that I have now says 98 pounds.
Does it matter for what?
For drawing.
I gotta be honest with you. As you know, I'm not good at remembering names. That's why I couldn't remember hot and cold, and I'm not good at remembering numbers. But this is what I would say to you is that you just need to also test it out for yourself.
Okay,
right?
thank you.
You need to see for yourself, is it holding the pencil? Is it too flimsy? Am I making dents in the paper because it's cheap computer paper and it's an impediment? So really, I would say see it for yourself. I'm more intuitive the way I approach things. Okay. Does that make sense?
Thank you. Yeah.
But of course, with drawing, you don't need a cardstock paper. I mean, a decent paper if you're doing it finished. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is show you some ways that famous artists use line, and then we will do our fun exercises. Okay, so I'm going to do a screen share. Okay, so wait, hang on, there's a pop-up on my screen here. Okay, so Leonardo da Vinci, how is he creating the shadow on this head? Anybody want to unmute and tell us how is he creating light and shadow?
He looks like he's using stripes. sort of marks going in diagonal directions.
Yes, very good. It's called hatching, and they're parallel lines. And the more lines you draw closer together, the darker the shadow is going to appear, right? The darker the gray, well, in this case, it's a brown, but the darker it's going to appear. The fewer lines, it's going to be lighter, right? In this one, the hatching is going in one direction, right? And they're all really pretty much parallel to each other, okay? Now, in this one by Vincent van Gogh, the hatching is a little different. It's a little looser, and he's working the hatching in different directions. And this is really important. When you do your drawing, your hatching, you usually correspond the hatching to the form of the thing that you're drawing. So for example, he's got diagonal lines on the nose because that is the way the direction of the form of the nose goes. He has other kinds of direction on the eyebrows because that's direction above the brow. And then he has the lines under the eye going around it, right? You see that, right? Okay, so you're not a machine when you draw. You're not a robot. You're not going to do this by rote, like mechanical. You want to be in touch with the thing that the object that you're drawing. And so your mark making will intuitively correspond to the object that you're drawing. And in this case, the effect of light and shadow in the direction of the line is creating volume. It gives the sense that the head is three-dimensional. So this is a different technique. This is Lee Krasner, a portrait of Lee Krasner, Jackson Pollock's wife, also an amazing artist. This is her boyfriend, Igor Pontohoff. Before she was married to Pollock, he made this portrait of Lee. And what techniques do we see here? This is using pencil, but blending, not hatching. This is where you might use your stump, and you might softly create shadows and then blend it so you don't even see the mark of the pencil. He has a combination here of blending with contour also. Contour is when you draw the edges of things. It's linear. So for example, around the chin, he has a line, that's a contour. The bottom of the nose, he has a contour. You see that? It's not an outline. An outline is like in a coloring book. Contour just goes around the edges of things, okay? And this lesson is not focused on light and shadow. However, I'll just give you some basics, right? But that's a whole other lesson, light and shadow on the human head. What we see here is we see cast shadows. A cast shadow is created, the light is blocked by the object. So under her chin, there's a cast shadow, right? The chin is like a canopy. But then we also have a core shadow, which is on the object itself. So for example, on her cheek, you see the softness of her cheek? That's a core shadow. It's not cast, it's on the actual form. And we also have reflected light. Reflection light sometimes comes from the surface below. So it seems like on her left side of her cheek, there's reflected light. You see that all the way to the left, right? And there's also two terms, a highlight and an accent. A highlight is the lightest light. So on her face here, where would the lightest light be? It's not that obvious to tell. But what are some of the very light areas? Anyone? A highlight?
Her nose.
Nose.
Yeah, usually it's on the top of the nose. Yeah. You usually also have a highlight coming from the iris, coming out from the pupil of the eye. He didn't put that here. And in this one, the top of the lip is pretty light too. The accent is the darkest dark. So where would you say the darkest dark is in this picture?
The iris, the eyes.
Yeah, in this case, the eyes, he made her irises really, 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 really huge, right? Sometimes the darkest dark is the line between the lips or in the nostrils or underneath the upper lid. It's the part where no light can get in there, okay? This one, it's really in Jackson Pollock's picture, which is also, it's not so much blended because this one you could see the texture of the paper. You see that there? It maybe is blended, but it also looks like he used almost like a filling in technique with the pencil, right? Tiny, tiny little marks filling in, filling in. But here we clearly see what I was just talking about. The highlight is on her nose, cast shadow under her chin, accent in her nostrils, and the crease in her lips, okay? This one I like. This is a combination of gouache and charcoal. This is not pencil, but sometimes you can use two mediums. You can use pencil with a wet medium as well, right? Gouache is a type of paint. This is Pablo Picasso, a self-portrait. And this is somewhat of a loose scribbling technique, right? He's using the pencil in a very loose way, and the pencil marks are corresponding to the form, like in the forehead, it's going horizontal, then it's moving around his cheekbone. So it's not completely random, but this is a very loose way of using a pencil. This is good for quick sketches. Here's another one of Picasso, and this one, the line becomes more expressive, right? So this is another lesson. It's a separate lesson. And, but the idea of how do you use a pencil or a mark or charcoal or any kind of drawing line to emphasize and push the expression of the person or thing that you're drawing. This is also Pablo Picasso, a Cubist picture, Cubist portrait, no longer about the likeness of anyone, but in terms of line, what kinds of lines do you see here? Who wants to tell us? You see crisscross, right? You see some hatching.
And contour too, right?
Yeah, you see the contour, good, right? We see that like on the hair, the closer the lines are, the more lines there are, the darker it appears, right? And we also see it's called cross-hatching. He's going in two directions in some places, like on the blouse. You see that? It's two directions, which I'm going to show you. This is George O'Keeffe. This is a very good example of blending and gradation. And we're going to do this also. The center of the shell, it's a dark, dark, dark. And as it moves outward, it becomes lighter and lighter and lighter. And we can think about this in terms of percentages. Like, is it 90% black? Is it 50% gray? Is it 10% gray? Right? It's a gray scale, you could say. What's beautiful about George O'Keeffe's images is she has the soft gradation, but then she also has clearly defined edges. But how does she define the edge of the spiral? It's not an outline. She's not making like an outline, like I said, in a coloring book. She's defining it with contrast. So you have a dark, dark against a light that indicates the edge. Does that make sense? So look at the upper left. You have a gray against a light. We read that as that's the edge of the shell, but we don't need an outline, okay? These are all things you're going to think about the more advanced you get with drawing. But there's many types of drawing. This one I love. This is abstract. So you could also play around with your pencil and your different techniques to make designs and abstract drawings from your imagination or inspired by nature, okay? But you don't have to copy nature. So let's get started. Let's have some fun doing some techniques here. Okay, so actually I'll continue with this. So here's the grayscale I was telling you about, right? This is an example of a gradation. The one on the top, you can clearly see, you know, there's a jump. The one on the bottom, there's no separate boxes. It just gradually goes from white, very gradually to dark, dark black, right? So we're going to do this with pencil, and we're going to start by doing hatching in one direction, okay? So what I want you to do is, and I'll show you in real time here, okay, is take your pencil and leave room for other exercises. Just draw your box here, divide it in two, and then divide it again, so you have 6 boxes. Okay, you can be neat, but neatness doesn't really matter for this. And then you're going to hatch in one direction, right? Now, if you're working with pencil, you can also vary the weight of the pencil as well as you go along. And you can vary the number of lines that you put. If you're working with pen and ink, you're not going to be able to vary, and press down is not going to help you get a thicker line necessarily, depending on the tool you're using. It would only be determined by the number of lines. If you have a tool that pressure doesn't change the line, like let's say a pen or a marker. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to gradually get darker and darker, and then I'll go back in the other direction. Okay. I can always add more, but you want to go from light to a dark, dark, and try to get it as gradual as you can. Okay? Any questions? I'm going to put the screen share back up. And please tell me when you are ready to go on to the next exercise. Just somebody say, I think it's time. Don't be shy. Anyone ready for the next exercise?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so now in our next box, below that, you're going to draw a chart the same way, and we're going to do cross-hatching in 2 directions, diagonally. Okay? So right, so you can draw your box here, leave room for another one on the bottom. Okay, and now we're going to go this way and this way. So the first box, you want to not do so many lines. It's going to get darker really a lot quicker. Now you can do this by going in 2 directions, box by box, or you could just go in one direction all the way through. right? And then come back the other way, right? But the idea is you want to try to get this to be as gradual as possible. We don't want big jumps. We want to go very, very gradually. This is called a gradation. You could always add more. So okay, so I would have to add a lot more on these boxes because they're all really too equal. I'm going to go back into it. Okay, but let me put up the screen share so you can see an example. Any questions? Does anyone need clarification? How's everybody doing?
Okay.
Good. Okay, do you need more time? Yes?
No.
Okay, good. So give me a clue, okay, so I'll know when to move on. Okay, so now we're going to do cross hatching in 4 directions. Okay, so this time you don't have to do boxes. You're going to go diagonal and then vertical and horizontal. This is good if you want to get a nice dark, right? So I will show you and then you can work on this one. So, right here, we don't need any boxes. Now, you can start. Now, I'm going to lighten up a lot when I come to the end, not put so many lines because I know I'm going to be going in other directions. So that's horizontal. I can always add more. Okay, vertical. Diagonal. And of course, when you step back, your eye blends all this together. So you sometimes don't even see the lines. And diagonal the other way. Okay, and then I'm going to keep adding more and more. So I'll put the, okay. But I can add more in here so it's not all on the light end. So I'm going to put the example up. And before I do that, I'm just gonna read the chat. Okay.
We're probably good.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. So now let's do some sharing. Is there anyone who would like to show us how you did so far? Because if we were sitting in a room together, you know, I'd be able to walk around, you'd be able to see each other. So who would like to share? Not a test, it's just makes it more fun, interactive. Kian?
Yeah, you can see, I don't know if, oh, you got it.
Can you hold it up? You're good.
Mute, okay.
Mhm, we can hear you.
Okay, so this was the first exercise from light to
Mhm.
dark
Okay, no,
shading.
that's the second one.
The second one is there.
Okay, my question on the first one, is that going in two directions?
Yes, I didn't understand. We were just gonna go in one direction.
Oh, okay, so this is why it's important for me to see what's going on. No, okay, so try it at your leisure after the class. Just try it doing in one direction, okay? 'Cause
Okay,
that could be handy, like, let's say you're doing a quick sketch, you don't have time, you're doing something really, really quick, right? You might just go boop, 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 right? So it's good to practice these different techniques, but thank you for showing your drawing.
thank you.
Anybody else?
I'll show, take a look. I don't know if you'll see it.
Hey,
we got it.
Renee, okay, great,
Mm.
okay. Let me just. Oh, okay, yeah, you flipped, oh, very nice. Okay, now did you do in oh, wait, on the bottom, you also went in two directions, right?
I went in 4 directions.
Oh, that's the one with the 4 directions. Okay,
Yeah,
it's
this is 4
yeah,
directions. This is
2.
cross hatching and this is the hatching.
Very good. Okay, very nice. All right.
Thank
Yeah, so you got the idea. Now, if we're gonna be fussy about this, you look at your drawing and just, you can be aware of like, was there like a big jump, right? But it's just an exercise. But just like, for example, in mine, I got gradual, and then there's like a big jump where this whole part is like mostly white. So how would I do it if I wanted to make it really gradual? I would add more lines in here and then darken this. Do you follow what I'm saying? But that's just an exercise. Okay. So ready for the next exercise. Let's switch it up a little bit. Okay, well, this is my example. Oh, okay, before we get to the next exercise, this is just an example of, let's say I was doing a simple object like a cup. I told you, you want the lines to go with the direction of the form. So I wouldn't just be hatching straight lines. I'm making them slightly curved to go along with the object. Does that make sense? Now that's both going across as well as up and down. There's a slight curve. You see that? But this is intuitive when you draw. You know, you're connected to what you're drawing. It'll just happen naturally. So next we're going to loosen up a little bit. We'll do the scribbling technique, where you basically want to do more scribbles for the darker part and fewer on the part that is light. So here we go. right? Here's my box. And then you can do it in any way you want, right? But you're gonna put them closer together, press harder, more scribbles here, and then see if you can gradually get it, right? So that it goes lighter, okay? And then you can go back too if you want. Put more in there. All right, so try that one. Okay, so next we're gonna do circling and blending. Now circling, make the box smaller because it takes a longer amount of time. It's basically like filling in, coloring in, that kind of thing. And you don't have to blend when you're circling or anything. But let's say I'm just gonna make a tiny little box because this takes a long time. So let's say here's my box here. And then I'm gonna make a little circular motion very tight so that I'm coloring in and you can barely see the circles. I'm basically filling in. That's why make the box really small because this takes time. See, and I'm pressing a little harder. This is really relaxing, actually. This is slow. Okay, you see? And then the less pressure I put, of course, the lighter it's going to get. I'm not even going to do that part because it's going to take too long. Okay. Now, naturally, you could leave, if you're doing a drawing, you could leave it just like this, right? And this can be really beautiful. But let's say you didn't even want to see any hint of your mark, of the artist mark. Then you could take a stump or anything else and smear it, right? You can blend it. And then you really hardly see any artist. You hardly have, you don't see really any line. Or very, very subtle, very subtle. Okay, so try that, but make the box really small for the sake of this class so we can do other exercises as well. Okay? Now, with this technique, or any of the techniques really, but more so with this one, let's say you realize, oh my gosh, I made it too dark on the end. That's where you can just use your eraser to remove, obviously, to lighten it up, right? Okay. Would anyone like to share what you made so far? So here in London. Let's see, Sahi. Okay, it's a little hard for me to see. Okay, but good. No, I see the small, but yeah, it looks really nice the way you did the blending. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Very nice. Good. Okay, anybody else?
Lori? Yeah. I don't know if you can see it.
Okay, you have two halves. What was gonna go? I'm curious, what's on the other half? You just
Nothing.
cut it in
I
half.
made it
small.
smaller.
Okay, good. Yeah.
I made the box smaller.
Right, right. And on yours, you didn't get to the white completely, right? It's more like
Yeah,
dark, maybe like
it's
a
dark
50%. Yeah. Okay. So if you wanted to, you could, in your spare time, you could make it longer to get to the white part for the sake of the exercise. Okay, but very good. Okay, thank you. So now we're going to have a crash course in light and shadow. Okay. And how do we apply this to drawing an object? So here we go. This is the basics, So we're going to draw a sphere. Okay. And if you look at the sphere on the left, okay, when you draw a circle on a piece of paper, it's flat. How do you make it look three-dimensional? The illusion of three-dimension. You're going to model it, right, with light and shadow. So again, the basic types of shadows. But before you get to that, identify the light source. So where is the light coming from on that ball?
Upper left.
Yeah, usually light comes from above. So once you identify the light source, then you're going to observe your shadows. And basically you have a highlight on the upper left. You have a cast shadow on the table. You have reflected light bouncing off the table on the lower part of the sphere. And then you have the core shadow moving just like what we just did, very gradually around that sphere.
Wow.
And it creates the illusion like you can pick that ball up, right? Now, you can apply those same basic ideas to a complex object like an eye. In the eye, we see a cast shadow. The lid usually casts a shadow onto the eyeball. It's like a canopy, right? And then the ball itself, the eyeball, it's not flat like an almond, it's a ball. So on the right and left of the eyeball, in the corners, it's a little darker. That's the core shadow making it look round, right? And then we have the accent. The really, really dark part is the pupil, the circle within the iris, and also the crease of the lid. But then we have that highlight in the iris as well. Now, this is another lesson that I do going more in detail about how to draw the eye. But I just wanted to show you how this simple sphere, you could apply it to other things as well. Now, in everyday life, light is not so simple because sometimes you have two light sources, right? Sometimes you have reflected like bouncing off of a window. So, but we're going to start with something simple like this. Okay. So you're going to first draw, what's that? First draw your basic circle, and then you're going to add your light and shadow. Here is an example of a sphere with shadows created with hatching. You can use this technique. Here's one that's made by filling in or circling, right? Okay. Okay, that one's also filling in, but on a grainier paper. So why don't we draw from this one? But before we get to that, I want to show you something. The reason that ball had two shadows, let's say here's my sphere, right? Here's my sphere. Okay, the light's coming from here and it's going this way. And it's going this way, right? the ball is blocking the light. The shadow is going to come out from here and end right there. But sometimes there's also a little shadow on this side, okay? Because the ball might be blocking the light right here as well. Does that make sense? So I am going to put the image up, and I want you to spend the next 10 minutes drawing light and shadow using whatever technique you want. And if you feel you need more time and, just take a screenshot of it, okay? And then you can finish it later. Actually, let me see which one is better here. No, we'll go with this one, okay? Any questions? Okay, I'm gonna get some water. I will be right back. I'm gonna leave you to your piece to draw, and then we'll do some sharing in about 10 minutes, okay? Questions, anybody? Anyone having trouble?
Joyce, you mentioned you could use any technique if you want to hatch, if you want to cross hatch, whatever you like. Yeah,
Yes.
okay, just checking. Because
Sure.
this looks like a whole bunch of dots.
This one?
Yeah,
Joyce, this is Jeannie. I think we're trying to draw a drawing. I think if you had a ball with the light shining on it, and we were looking at that, it would be better than trying to draw a drawing of another drawing.
That's a
Because when
good,
I'm looking at this, it looks like the light is coming from, going towards it.
yes,
Where
it
the
is.
light part is, but then it, it looks like the shadow would be more behind it, so it's confusing to me. Okay, that's just my two
That's a
cents.
good point. That's a good analysis. It looks like the light, I could see what you're saying. It's probably, it could be the drawing is off. I never realized that before, but it could also be that it's coming from like in front, but also from the side. Do you know what I mean? But good point. I'm gonna think about that. And also, if you're doing this exercise after the class, it's actually good to draw an actual ball or draw an egg and put a dramatic light source, put it on a white surface. That's even better. Okay? Good point. Okay, everybody, I'll tell you what, we only have a few minutes left, so I invite you to take a screenshot of this. Or, like I said, better yet, even, continue this on your own, draw something from, real life observation. So let me check the messages. Yes, I will give you the recording as soon as, here's what I'm gonna do. I will post this recording on my YouTube channel, okay? So I'll put my name in the chat, but I'm not gonna keep it up there for a really long time because of the fact that it's not edited. So I'll keep it up for like a week. How's that? Wait, let me. What?
Joyce, when you say take a screenshot, what exactly is it that you're saying?
Oh, that's a technical, why, oh.
A screenshot, what, with your cell phone?
No, well, you could do that.
Or what's the alternative using
Yeah,
Zoom?
on my Mac computer, when I press right here, Command-Shift-4, it takes a screenshot, which means that I'll have a photograph of whatever was on my screen. But it also,
But this isn't on my screen, so this is on my paper. So how I'm
no,
not
a
sure.
screenshot, when I put the image, are you looking into a computer?
Yeah, I'm looking at the screen on my laptop.
Yeah, so look, I'll show you. When I put
Oh,
this,
so it will be your screenshot,
you
not a
will take,
screenshot from us.
well, it's when you're looking at your computer and the image of the drawing is on your computer, you take a picture of it. So here, I'm going to put it up.
So then you need another device.
No, you
Yeah?
can do it
No?
directly from your computer, but I'm not
Okay.
explaining
Shift
technology.
4.
On my computer, on my Mac, I push Command-Shift-4, but I'm not good at explaining technology. You could just take your phone and take a picture of it. Where was it? It was this one. Just take a picture of it with your phone.
Yeah, Control-Shift-4 doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, well, this is beyond the scope of my expertise explaining technology.
Wait, mine is Control-Shift-5.
Okay, there you go. Okay.
Thanks.
Oh, you're welcome. So anyway, if you want to see the video, I don't know why I'm trying to send a chat and I'm putting in everybody and it's not allowing me to send it to everybody.
And you should be able to. You
This
want
is,
to just send it to me and I'll send it out?
yeah, or I'll just say, it's just my name, Joyce Raimondo, JoyceRaimondo. Google Joyce Raimondo YouTube. It'll take you into my channel and then search for What's My Line, and it'll bring you to the video. You'll also see 70 other videos on there. And it is a labor of love. If you watch the video and you like it, I would really appreciate it if you just push the button that says subscribe. I have 510 subscribers. I'm aiming for 1,000. And there's nothing, it doesn't cost you anything. You're not going to get emails or anything like that. Okay. It just helps me out. So, okay, where were we with this? Let's see how somebody did before we wrap this up. One person who didn't get a chance today. Anybody? Let's start with that. Okay, we're going to zoom over to the Sandra, okay, good. Nice, very
nice.
nice, Sandra. Good job. See that, everybody? It's like you could reach right in there and pick it up. Good job, right? Okay, good, very good. Okay, let's see. How about, we'll take two more quick ones, okay? Anybody else?
Anybody else? I'll do.
Oh, Lorena. Oh, Lorena, you have your background. It doesn't work with the background, with the fake background.
Oh, but I love the fake background.
I know, it looks, I wish I had a background like that. No, but it
Not
doesn't.
letting me do it. It's not letting me go off, yeah.
How about Marcia Grace? Okay, let's go to Marcia here. Hang
Ooh.
on. Nice, Marcia. Yeah, very good. I would say probably the shadow on the left, I mean, on the right side when I'm looking at it, it turned a little bit into like almost a little poof. So maybe the shape could be a little more flat, like it's on a flat surface on a table, like a little more straight across. But you definitely got the shadowing and everything. Very good.
Thank you.
Hope you enjoyed it.
Yes.
One more quick one. Anybody?
Louise,
Where's Louise? Oh, Louise. Welcome, Louise.
let's see, where am I here?
Okay,
These-
hold it right there. Oh, very nice.
It looks like a snail to me.
Yes.
Oh, well, I'll tell you, I think you did a great job. You got the
Thank you.
highlight, you got the cast shadow, all that, and the reflected light.
Mhm.
I have one suggestion.
Yes.
The reason it looks like a snail is because, it doesn't really, but the reason you're saying that is because when you came to the highlight part,
Mhm.
there's a dark rim around the highlight, which makes
Ah,
it look like there's a bump over there.
okay, yes.
See what I mean?
I see what you mean.
Okay, so that's what, everybody, don't be afraid to erase when you draw, okay? It becomes part of the drawing. Even if you see the past lines and erasures, the so-called mistakes, that just becomes part of the drawing, the history of the drawing, okay?
Okay.
So where you go from here is you get a sketch pad. You can go to the dollar store. You don't have to even get expensive paper. Draw all the time, right, Lorena?
Yep.
And set things up, set simple objects to start with a simple light source and draw that. And then it gets more advanced, the more complex the object is and the more complex the light. And what is our next workshop, Lorena?
It is hold on, 21st, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, at 4:00. Oh, it's the 20th. It's Wednesday, the 20th.